It was June 6, 1961. I was lying in my bed in Küsnacht, Switzerland, my body failing, but my mind more lucid than it had been in years. My wife, Emma, sat beside me, holding my hand as I drifted in and out of consciousness. But during one of those drifts, I saw something that made me grip her hand so tightly, she later told me it left marks. I had just witnessed a vision of a specific year far into the future. A year when everything I had spent my entire life studying would culminate in one terrifying moment. The year was 2026, and what I saw made me realize that humanity was heading toward a split so profound that it would create two entirely different species of human consciousness. I tried to warn the world about what was coming, but perhaps I didn't make it clear enough. Perhaps I hid the truth too deeply in my writings, afraid of being called mad. Today I want to tell you everything. I need you to understand what's about to happen to the human race. Let me take you back to a moment that changed everything for me. It was 1913, and I was having what the medical establishment would call a psychotic break. But I knew better. I was descending into what I would later call the collective unconscious, that vast ocean of human experience that exists beneath our individual awareness. During those dark months, I had visions that would shape my entire life's work. But there was one vision I never told anyone about, one vision that was so disturbing, so absolute in its certainty, that I kept it locked away in my personal journals. In this vision, I saw the timeline of human consciousness stretching out before me like a river, and I saw that this river would reach a fork, a division point where it would split into two separate streams, never to merge again. The date of this split appeared to me with crystal clarity, 2026. At the time, I didn't understand why that specific year, but as I continued my research into the collective unconscious, into archetypes, into the shadow and the self, I began to see the pattern. Here's something that will make you question everything you think you know about human psychology. For decades, I studied what I called the individuation process, the journey every person must take to become whole, to integrate all the fractured parts of their psyche. But what I discovered terrified me. I realized that humanity as a whole was also going through an individuation process. And just like an individual can either successfully integrate their shadow or be destroyed by it, humanity would face the same choice. The difference is that humanity's choice would happen all at once in a single moment of collective crisis. That moment is 2026. Let me share with you what I saw with such clarity. In my vision of 2026, I witnessed humanity dividing into two distinct groups, not based on race, nationality, or religion, but based on something far more fundamental, their willingness to confront the shadow. The first group, those I call the integrated ones, would be people who had done the difficult work of facing their own darkness. They had looked into the abyss of their unconscious mind and accepted what they found there. These people would experience what I can only describe as a quantum leap in consciousness. It wouldn't be gradual evolution. It would be sudden activation. I saw these integrated individuals developing abilities that we currently consider supernatural or impossible. Direct access to the collective unconscious would become as natural as breathing. They would know things without being taught, feel connections across vast distances, see patterns that remained invisible to others. But here's what disturbed me most about this group. They would no longer be able to live in the old world. Their consciousness would be so expanded that trying to fit into the structures of modern society would be like trying to force a fully grown tree back into its seed. They would need to create entirely new ways of living, new social structures, new paradigms of existence. The second group, those I called the fragmented ones, would be people who refused to face their shadow, who continued to project their darkness onto others, blaming external enemies for the chaos they felt inside. These people wouldn't be evil or bad. They would simply be terrified. Terrified of change, terrified of looking inward, terrified of losing the identity structures they had built their entire lives upon. And this terror would cause them to fragment further and further until their consciousness became so rigid, so defensive, that they would lose the capacity for growth entirely. I saw these fragmented individuals becoming trapped in loops of fear and aggression. They would see enemies everywhere because they couldn't acknowledge the enemy within. They would demand absolute certainty in a universe designed for mystery. They would rage against the very changes that could set them free. And the tragedy, the absolute tragedy that made me weep in my vision, is that this fragmentation would be a choice, an unconscious choice, yes, but a choice nonetheless. But the part of the vision that left me shaking wasn't just the division itself, it was what would happen in the years leading up to 2026. I saw that humanity would be forced to confront its collective shadow in a way it never had before. Every repressed trauma, every denied truth, every suppressed darkness would rise to the surface all at once. It would be like watching someone's unconscious mind explode into their waking reality. Chaos would seem to reign everywhere. Old structures would crumble. Authority would lose its power. Truth would become relative. Reality itself would seem to fracture. And people would have a choice in how they responded to this chaos. They could either recognize it as the necessary death before rebirth, the dissolution before reconstitution, the darkness before dawn, or they could panic, resist, fight against the very process that was trying to transform them. Those who chose acceptance would be the integrated ones. Those who chose resistance would be the fragmented ones. And 2026 would be the year when this division became permanent, irreversible, absolute. Let me tell you about 3 specific things I saw happening in 2026. 3 events that would serve as catalysts for this great division of consciousness. These weren't predictions in the mystical sense. They were psychological inevitabilities, the natural outcome of patterns I had been tracking throughout my entire career. The first event I saw was what I called the revelation of the collective shadow. In 2026, something would happen that would force humanity to confront the darkest aspects of its collective psyche all at once. I saw information coming to light, secrets being revealed, truths being spoken that would shatter the carefully constructed illusions we had been living under. This revelation wouldn't be gentle or gradual. It would be violent, shocking, undeniable, like ripping off a bandage to expose a festering wound. Some people would look at this wound and say, yes, we must heal this, we must acknowledge this darkness within us. These would be the integrated ones. But others would recoil in horror, would deny what they were seeing, would desperately try to cover the wound, back up and pretend it didn't exist. These would be the fragmented ones. The revelation itself wouldn't divide humanity. The response to the revelation would. I saw that this revelation would involve institutions we thought we could trust, systems we believed were protecting us, authorities we assumed had our best interests at heart. The exposure of their shadow side wouldn't just be scandalous, it would be paradigm shattering. It would force every individual to question everything they had ever believed about the structure of reality itself. And in that moment of questioning, in that void of uncertainty, people would either find the courage to rebuild their understanding from the ground up, or they would desperately cling to the old certainties even as they crumbled around them. The second event I saw for 2026 was what I called the awakening of the archetypes. Throughout my life, I studied the universal symbols and patterns that exist in the collective unconscious of all humanity, the hero, the shadow, the anima, the self. These aren't just concepts or metaphors, they are living forces that shape human behavior and experience. In my vision, I saw that in 2026, these archetypal forces would become active in an unprecedented way. They would begin to express themselves directly through human consciousness, no longer filtered through myth and story, but manifesting as direct experience. I saw people around the world simultaneously beginning to have dreams, visions, and experiences involving the same archetypal imagery. It would be as if the collective unconscious itself was waking up and speaking directly to humanity. Those who understood the language of symbols, who had studied the inner world, who had done their psychological work, would be able to interpret these messages. They would understand that the unconscious was trying to guide humanity through this critical transition. But those who had no psychological awareness, who had never looked inward, who dismissed the reality of the unconscious mind, would experience these archetypal activations as chaos, confusion, or even madness. I saw that this archetypal awakening would manifest in ways both beautiful and terrifying. Synchronicities would become so common that they could no longer be dismissed as coincidence. People would report encounters with beings that seemed to exist on the boundary between inner and outer reality. Dreams would become so vivid and meaningful that they would influence waking life in undeniable ways. And those who were prepared for this, who understood the reality of the psyche's depths, would navigate these experiences with grace, and grow from them. But those who were unprepared would be overwhelmed, would retreat further into materialism and rationality, would deny their own experiences rather than expand their understanding of reality. The third and most critical event I saw for 2026 was the moment of choice. I saw that at some point during that year, every human being on earth would experience a moment of clarity, a brief window where they would see both paths clearly, the path of integration and the path of fragmentation. It wouldn't come as a voice or a vision. It would come as a feeling, an intuition, a knowing, and in that moment each person would choose their path, often without even realizing they were choosing. I saw that this choice wouldn't be intellectual or conscious for most people. It would be visceral, emotional, based on the fundamental question, am I willing to change or do I need things to stay the same? Am I willing to face my darkness or must I continue to project it outward? Am I ready to let go of who I thought I was or must I defend that identity at all costs? The answer to these questions would determine which stream of the divided river each person would follow. And once chosen, once that moment had passed, the division would be complete. Now here's the part that kept me awake during my nights, that made me grip Emma's hand and whisper warnings she didn't fully understand. I saw that the signs leading up to 2026 would be unmistakable to those who knew what to look for. And looking at our world, I can see that every single sign I witnessed is already manifesting. The collective shadow is rising. Can you not see it? The hatred, the division, the projection of evil onto the other side, whichever side you happen to oppose. This isn't just political polarization. This is the collective unconscious vomiting up repressed material that can no longer be contained. I predicted that people would increasingly live in entirely different realities, unable to agree even on basic facts about the world, not because they're stupid or brainwashed, but because they're perceiving through different levels of consciousness. Those who are beginning to integrate can see patterns and connections that remain invisible to those who are fragmenting. It's not that one group is smarter, it's that they're operating from a different paradigm of awareness entirely. I also saw that more and more people would be experiencing numinous encounters, direct experiences of the sacred, the mystical, the transcendent, not through religion or ritual, but spontaneously, often during ordinary moments. These experiences would increase in frequency and intensity as we approach 2026. And I see now that this is happening. Millions of people around the world are reporting spiritual awakenings, consciousness shifts, perception changes that they can't explain. This is the archetypal activation I foresaw. This is the collective unconscious beginning to wake up. But I also predicted the counter-reaction. As consciousness expands in some, it contracts in others. As some people open to new possibilities, others close down in fear. As some embrace mystery, others demand absolute certainty. This isn't a moral failing, it's a psychological defense mechanism. When the psyche is confronted with more complexity than it can handle, it either expands to accommodate it or contracts to defend against it. And we are seeing both responses magnified in our world. Let me share something I wrote in my private journal on May 15th, 1961. I wrote, I have seen the future fork that awaits humanity, and I am filled with both terror and hope. Terror because the pain of this division will be immense, and many souls will be lost to fragmentation. Hope because those who emerge integrated on the other side will be the seed of a new humanity, one that has finally learned to live consciously with both light and shadow. The year 2026 will be remembered as the moment when humanity stopped being unconscious and was forced to choose consciousness or dissolution. My prayer is that enough souls choose consciousness to carry humanity forward into its next evolution. Start the work of integration now. Begin the difficult process of facing your own shadow, of acknowledging the darkness within you, of accepting all the parts of yourself you've spent your life denying or repressing. This doesn't mean acting on your darkness. It means recognizing it, understanding it, integrating it into your conscious awareness. Only then can you truly choose your actions rather than being driven by unconscious forces. Learn the language of the unconscious. Pay attention to your dreams. Study symbolism and mythology. Understand that the psyche speaks in images and feelings, not just words and logic. The more fluent you become in this language, the better you'll be able to navigate what's coming. When the archetypal forces activate in 2026, you'll need to understand what you're experiencing. Those who can't interpret the symbols will be terrified by them. Those who can will be guided by them. Practice sitting with uncertainty. The modern world has trained you to need immediate answers, absolute certainty, clear explanations for everything. But the unconscious operates in mystery, paradox, ambiguity. If you can't tolerate not knowing, if you need everything to fit into neat logical categories, you will fragment when reality refuses to cooperate with your need for certainty. Learn to be comfortable in the space between knowing and not knowing. This is where transformation happens. Most importantly, do not project your shadow onto others. This is the most crucial point. Every time you point to someone else and say they are evil, they are wrong, they are the problem, ask yourself, what part of myself am I refusing to see? The enemy is never just out there. There is always an internal component, an unconscious participation in the very thing you're condemning. This doesn't mean external evil doesn't exist. It means you can't fight external evil effectively until you've acknowledged your own capacity for it. The division I saw coming in 2026 isn't predetermined. Every individual has the power to choose which side of that division they fall on, but that choice must be made consciously through dedicated inner work, through the courage to look at yourself honestly. Those who drift unconsciously into 2026, who haven't done this work, will find the choice made for them by their unconscious patterns. And once the division occurs, once 2026 passes and the fork solidifies, crossing from one stream to the other will become extraordinarily difficult, perhaps impossible for most. There's one final thing I saw that I've never told anyone. In my vision of 2026, after the division occurred, I saw the integrated ones looking back at the fragmented ones with profound sadness, not judgment, not superiority, but heartbreak, because they could see so clearly how close everyone had come to transformation, how available the opportunity had been, how many souls had chosen fear over courage at that critical moment. They understood that the fragmented ones weren't evil or stupid, they were just terrified, and that terror had locked them into a prison of their own making. But I also saw something beautiful. I saw that some of the integrated ones would refuse to cross fully into the new consciousness. They would remain at the boundary, serving as bridges, as guides, as lights in the darkness for those who might still find the courage to cross over. They would sacrifice their own advancement to help others make the journey. These would be the true heroes of the transition, the ones who wouldn't abandon their brothers and sisters to fragmentation. And their work would continue long after 2026, helping to slowly heal the division over generations. So here we are. The year I saw with such terrible clarity that I tried to warn the world in every way I knew how, through my books, my lectures, my letters to colleagues, but perhaps I made it too academic, too intellectual, too buried in psychological jargon. Let me say it clearly now. In 2026, humanity will be forced to grow up or fall apart. You will confront your collective shadow, whether you want to or not. You will experience the awakening of the archetypes, whether you understand them or not. You will face the moment of choice, whether you're prepared or not. The only question is, will you meet these challenges consciously or unconsciously? Will you integrate or fragment? Will you expand or contract? The truth is, you don't need to believe in my visions to feel that something profound is shifting. You can sense it, can't you? That feeling that we're building towards something massive, some fundamental change in the nature of human consciousness itself. That sensation isn't paranoia or imagination. It's your unconscious trying to prepare you for what's coming. It's the collective unconscious sending up signals that the great transformation is near. Listen to those signals. Trust that intuition. Begin the work of integration now. Today, this moment. If this message has resonated with something deep inside you, if you felt that chill of recognition as you heard my words, it's because your unconscious already knows what I'm telling you. Some part of you has been preparing for this moment your entire life. You are one of the ones who can bridge the divide, who can help humanity navigate this transition consciously rather than falling into chaos. But only if you're willing to do the work. Only if you have the courage to face your own darkness and integrate it. Tell me, have you been been feeling the changes, the strange dreams, the synchronicities, the growing sense that you're meant for something more than the ordinary life you've been living? These are signs that your consciousness is preparing for the shift. Don't ignore them. Don't dismiss them as fantasy or coincidence. They are the voice of your deeper self trying to guide you through what's coming. Because 2026 will divide humanity into two streams, and the choice of which stream you follow begins right now in this moment with your willingness to look inward and see yourself truly. The fork is coming. The great division approaches. And when it arrives, there will be no more fence sitting, no more spiritual bypassing, no more pretending you can stay unconscious and comfortable. You will be forced to choose integration or fragmentation, consciousness or dissolution, growth or stagnation. Choose wisely. Your choice won't just determine your future, it will help determine the future of human consciousness itself. Until we meet again on the other side of the Great Divide.